And now I will resume the recording of the meeting. You're good to go.
All right, good evening. The legislature in position at 6:30. If you would all stand for the pledge led by Legislator Harp and remain standing for a moment of silence, I'd appreciate it.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
of the United
and to
States
the
of America
republic
and to
and to the republic
stands
for which
for which it stands,
one nation
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all.
All right, thank you. Be seated. Stacy, would you do the roll call?
Sure. Harp,
present.
LaSalle,
Here.
Howell,
Here.
Rondinero,
Here,
Reed,
Here.
Gray,
Here.
Barnes, Flowers.
Here. Thank you. Do we have any emergency resolutions?
We do. We have one, and it is on the agenda.
All right, thank you. Public participation, would anyone like to address the legislatures? Being no requests, we'll move on to resolution and motions. Stacy, you're gonna take us through that?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
All right, we are in order for resolution number 114, approve the minutes of the May 11th, 2020 regular meeting of the Schuyler County Legislature.
I'll move it. Second.
Howell, Hart,
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 any opposed? Okay. Carries 7-0. We're in order for intro one, and authorized contract with the Office of Indigent Legal Services for the second continued provision of counsel at first appearance grant offender.
I'm glad I'm not trying to take.
Call upon the United States and allied intelligence communities and United Nations agencies separate from the World Health Organization to fully investigate and, if warranted, refer for prosecution the role of the Chinese Communist government and officials in the origin, spread, and cover-up of COVID-19 coronavirus.
We have a motion?
So moved.
And that is,
Second?
who moved it? I need last names. I can't.
Second read.
Discussion?
I will just make a comment. In the public media in the last week, there have been 2 comments by staff members of the executive branch that the coronavirus was the word was foisted on the, that's not the exact word, but that's the same meaning was foisted on the world, basically a large number of countries in the world. And just today, the trade advisor, what's his name? Navarro, Peter Navarro, specifically made the comment that the Chinese were responsible for exposing the rest of the world to the virus, and with the comment that it looked like it was a intentional release. That's my summary of his comments. Okay.
All right, thank you, Van. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I don't know what that is.
I can't hear it.
Was that one of us talking?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll just move along. All in favor of carrying the motion forward?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Objections?
opposed?
That's a objection to the vote.
Hearing none, it passes 8-0. Legislator Barnes is with us, I see.
Okay.
Thank
In
you.
order for intro 3 through 6, grant contract with the New York State Department of Health for the 2020-2021 early intervention cycle, public health. Authorized 2-year contract with Aspire Hope New York Incorporated for family support and parent advocacy services, community services. Authorized contract with Construction Management Associates LLC for professional consulting services, social services, and authorized transfer of funds for detention services, social services.
I'll
We
move
have a
them.
motion.
Rondinaro, I'll move them.
Second.
Second, Harp.
Yes.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, we're in order for intro 7, 8, and 9. Authorize amendment to the existing intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Montour Falls and authorize use of economic development funds for expenses related to the Catherine Valley Trail. Resolution in support of pending bills in New York State Legislature S08326 and A10449 eliminates the powers of the governor to issue any directive necessary to respond to a state disaster, to restore necessary checks and balances, and preserve separation of powers. In resolution of support for federal bipartisan state and municipal aid for recovery and transition SMART Fund legislation.
We have a motion.
I'll move it. Howell.
Thank you.
Second, Rondinaro.
Okay.
Okay, discussion?
I wasn't present for the discussion at LRRC, but Resolution 8, I looked through the directives that, the executive orders that are being issued, and I'm not quite clear what the problem is with the job the governor's doing. Seems like we're in the middle of a orderly reopening, so I probably will vote no on that one.
All right, thank you, Michael. Other comments?
I think 8 describes my sentiments absolutely, and so I brought it to committee, and definitely I'm standing behind it.
I agree, Mark.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll record my opposition to 8. I vote yes for the other 2.
You want to do a roll call vote on it, Stacy?
On intro 8,
Yeah.
Bill, was that the one that you were after, or was there a different one that?
And also 9, please.
well, let's do it on all 3 then. All 3 on the floor. Harp,
Yes.
LaSalle,
Yes on 7 and 9, no on 8.
Howell,
Yes on all 3.
Rondinero,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes on all three.
Gray,
Yes on all three.
Barnes,
Yes on 7 and 8, no on 9.
Flowers,
No on 8, yes on the other 2.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. They pass. 6 to 2, 7 to 1. We are in order for intro 10 through 15. Authorize amendment to the lease contract with Toshiba Business Solutions for copiers purchasing. Standard workday and reporting resolution for 2020. Authorize distribution of mortgage tax receipts pursuant to section 261 of the New York State tax law for the period of October 1st, 2019 through March 31st, 2020. Authorize grant contract with the New York State Board of Elections for COVID-19 related expenses, Board of Elections. Adopt revised Schuyler County Substance Abuse Policy, Drug and Alcohol Testing Program, Human Resources. And authorize stipulation and release of claims agreement with Jessica J. Burns, Human Resources.
I'll make the motion.
Barnes,
Second, LaSalle.
LaSalle.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on any of these items? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, resolutions pass.
Oh,
We're now at order 16, motion to bring one additional,
motion carries.
sorry,
Okay, Steve.
I'll move 16.
okay,
Second.
Barnes,
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Stacy?
intro 17, resolution calling on the state of New York to release enhanced federal Medicaid matching funds to counties in New York City social services.
I'll move it, LaSalle.
Second, Rondinaro.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
This comes, as a, after review by Commissioner Frater-Cangelo and at the urging of NISAC on last Thursday evening's call. The legislature adopted a similar resolution a little over a month ago, I believe. But as you're aware, the state, as part of the CARES Act and the early federal stimulus funding, was awarded $2.5 billion for Medicaid assistance. And since New York State shares those costs with the counties, a portion, roughly 20% of that, is reserved for the counties. To date, that has not been released. The reason this is being brought forward again is that, according to Steve Aquario at NISAC, when pressed at the state level, the state is saying they're not hearing anything from the counties. That can't be that much of a problem if nobody's complaining about it. So we immediately put this resolution together, and every county is being asked to submit the same resolution. It was timely that this legislature was meeting this evening, so you will be one of the first to adopt it again. This is somewhat revised from what you did, but just by way of background on this, and thank you for considering it as an emergency resolution.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Stacy, did we vote on that or not?
No, we did not.
We did have discussion. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Okay,
That's it?
that's it.
The,
Agenda.
Any new business to come for the legislature? Do we have any unfinished business? County Administrator, would you
Sure.
like to bring us up to date?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Since last we spoke, and it seems like daily, if not hourly, the situation changes. But from our last meeting, just provide additional updates. First, with respect to executive orders, 202.37 has now been enacted, authorizing special education services to be performed in person for the summer term, following federal and state guidelines, notwithstanding any order to the contrary. 202.38 actually extended all previous executive orders between 202 and 2.14 that were originally scheduled to expire June 6th and now are scheduled till July 6th. As part of that was the workforce, the local government workforce reduction directive that was since modified today, so that counties that are in phase 2 or municipalities actually that are in phase 2 for at least 2 weeks may beginning returning non-essential employees to the workplace. That doesn't change anything for us. We're still phasing staff back in as the workload warrants it. Other executive orders of late last week, retail business owners or property owners are allowed to conduct temperature checks on individuals prior to allowing them onto the property. They're not mandated to, but they do have the right to do that. All restaurants, and as I'm sure everyone's aware, are now able to serve on premises, but outside only. Effective Sunday, all churches and house of worship in areas of phase 2 reopening can now go to 25% indoor capacity when previously the limit was 10 individuals. And bars and restaurants with a liquor license to serve customers in either a contiguous public space, for example, sidewalks or closed streets, or unlicensed contiguous private space under the control of the restaurant or bar, may now submit to the liquor authority a request to expand their liquor license to cover those areas. Should the expansion be on public property, such as a sidewalk, a street, or a parking lot, municipal action is required for that to happen. In both cases, it's a very simple process. It's literally an email to the state with a diagram of the proposed expansion, and the state is receiving them, and the business, once submitting the intent of the plan, is allowed to do so, following all the social distance requirements and the regulations that are included in the outdoor dining area. The Village of Watkins Glen met last Friday to open up their public space. We met with council governments this afternoon. I briefed them on this as well. I'm not sure if other municipalities are going to be taking any action, but a number of private businesses have already done so. And if you were in the villages over this past weekend, you can see the immediate fruits of those efforts. Additionally, phase 3 guidance is scheduled to be released this evening. Hopefully, I'm expecting to receive it tonight or tomorrow. And this is in advance of, in contrary to how phase 2 was handled, when the guidance wasn't available on the eve of it opening. So phase 3, as you're all aware, is not automatic. It's at least a 14-day interval, and the metrics will be reviewed by independent experts, and then ultimately the governor will authorize a region to move into phase 3 or not. So we're hoping that that happens in a timely fashion. The fact that the phase 3 guidance is being promulgated and soon to be released is a good sign. As a region, our metrics continue to improve. From the county standpoint, as of today, we have no new cases and we have no positives. We've had a total of 14 COVID-related cases, no hospitalizations, no deaths, and as of today, only 6 people still under quarantine, but 0 positive cases. The rest of the region is doing equally well. Broome County has experienced an uptick, but they've had a hot spot in a nursing home. The rest of the counties are reporting 0 to 1 new cases on average. So today our numbers are actually better than they were when we started. So we have no reason to think that won't continue. Also, recent executive orders, high school graduations outdoors are now permitted as of June 26th, assuming that the metrics are still strong, for a maximum of 150 people. And school board elections, where the school board and budget elections, the deadline for receiving ballots has been extended by a week to allow for absentee ballots to be postmarked up until tomorrow and received no later than the 16th. So the final school budget and school board votes won't be final until a week from tomorrow. So I think also the DMV question, I know we talked about this last week. It has been clarified that county DMVs are included in the state DMV directive, meaning that they are not allowed to open until phase 3. There's supposedly an executive order to that effect coming out tonight, but that means that our DMV will be able to open, we're assuming the information is correct, when we go into phase 3. Our DMV staff is working. They are processing mail-in and drop-off applications, and we are taking names for appointments to schedule as soon as we're able to open. I know that's been probably, after the outdoor dining, the DMV was probably the second highest question we've received. So so that's, I'll stop there in case you have questions beyond that, or anything.
I do,
else.
Tim.
Sure.
Was anything brought up or discussed about the not only the demonstrations and protests, but the riots and what was expected in the aftermath?
Well, certainly it's been noted that the large gatherings have been occurring. I guess time will tell and see if there is an impact on the numbers with that. But there certainly was some frustration that you know, these gatherings could occur, but high school graduations couldn't. But that, you know, their social distancing was not the best in the large metropolitan areas. We'll see what happens as a result.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mark.
I just wanted to bring up in relation to what Tim was talking about restaurants and bars, that according to guidance received from the State Liquor Authority by the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, farm wineries are now allowed to serve tastings outside under the same regulations, so that it's not just alcohol service, which was expected, but also pouring of tastings.
I will say the State Liquor Authority has been super accommodating in this and responsive to being able to roll this out, you know, almost on a statewide basis, anyone that's in phase 2. So it's, and those of you that have dealt with the Liquor Authority in the past know that that's not always the case. So they have been, we had a call with them this afternoon, as a matter of fact. They've been very responsive and very accommodating.
Other questions for Tim?
Tim Howell here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't we talking about opening our DMV today as early as a week or 10 days ago? Has there been what was the change with that?
Well, two things. First, we came to realize that the DMVs were originally closed by executive order, and that executive order expired June 6th. So we didn't have the ability to reopen them until the order was either extended or expired. The governor subsequently issued the order covering the state DMVs and adding county DMVs to that, authorizing opening as regions go into phase 3. And that's still with the adequate controls and social distancing protocols put in place. So, but those were the differences. We've tied our opening, or we had tied our opening around the DMV opening, thinking that would be the first agency to open, and sadly, that's not the case.
Yep. Okay.
Questions for Tim? Tim, thank you very much. Good job. Good update.
Well, one thing I will add that I forgot, I'm sorry for not shutting up. we are starting to reopen offices by appointment, and by next week that will be expanded. We are also following, our guidelines as required, so that when you're in the building, and this means me, you, anybody, in common areas, masks are required. So in private offices or without contact with other individuals, it's not necessary, but the courts are insisting on this for any of their facilities. And that's part of our plan as well. So just as a heads up, mask will be required for anyone in common areas in any of our buildings.
One more question, Tim. Are you forecasting that our July meeting will be other than Zoom?
I hope so.
I do too.
Yeah.
So is that looking like that's going to happen?
I think it can happen. If I remember correctly, the discussion with the legislature was that when it happens, it will be only if the public is included. So having a room that will accommodate both the legislature and the public and allow for social distancing is really the only thing that stands in the way of doing that right now. So you can meet in person, but the legislature doesn't want to do so until it can adequately include the public in those meetings. So discussions on using the courtroom or human services or the Performing Arts Center, those are all possibilities.
Okay, good. Any other questions? We have a total of 15 minutes for public participation. If anyone would like to address us. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Just one quick, Tim, when would we actually be would that be something at committees when we would decide how to handle next month's, or?
I would suggest it be a topic of discussion at your Thursday update meeting this week. It's not too early to start talking about it.
Okay.
Especially if we have to relocate, we have to advertise and do work way ahead of time if we're not going to be in the courthouse complex.
So
Very
maybe that could be on the agenda for Thursday.
I think that would be great.
All right. Entertaining a motion to
So
adjourn.
moved.
Second, Rondinaro.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.